Hey guys, welcome back. Okay, so next we are going to look at this footer component. Okay, now footer component receives this onHandleFilter function as a prop, and it gets the count of active to-dos, and they both are here, right? So basically what we want to do is we want to remove this props drilling and make footer responsible for getting the count from the state and also dispatching an action creator. Okay, saying that, you could pass the get count from here because all it's doing is basically counting the length of active to-dos items. So it's absolutely fine that you can pass the count down if you want to. But since we are trying to practice, and it's always good to repeat yourself as much as you can because that helps you to engrave these things into your muscle memory, right? For that reason, I'm going to delete everything and leave footer component nice and simple. I'll go back to the footer and let's start working. So the first thing I'm going to do is import connect from React Redux. And you will see a lot of repetition, and it's a good thing. The more you repeat yourself doing these things, the more it's going to become easier, right? And I'll just wrap this in the connect, okay? Now, as we said, we do need access to the state to-dos so we can get the count out of it. So what we will do is we will say const map state to props, and that will have access to state, and then we can use the JSX way of returning. We can say that to-dos is going to be state.todos. Okay, let's not forget to pass it here. Oops. Map state to props, and now we are not getting the count, but we are getting to-dos, okay? And if we go back to our app.js, we can easily get this logic, be lazy, right? And say const get count, and that's going to be a function, and then we just return. But because we destructure in here, so we don't need to say this props or anything like that. So that should do it. So that means now I can come down here and I can say get count, right? And that should give me the count for to-dos. So if I refresh, we've got one item. If I say 1, we've got 2, 3, so the count is working as expected. Cool, so now let's have a look. So we've got this actions file, which houses all the action creators. And what we will do is we will create now, let's see. So let's create an action creator for active to-dos, right? So we will say export const, and we will say active to-dos filter, and that would be active to-dos filter. Okay, let me get the spelling right. We could have created separate files. So one would have been for the action creators related to the to-dos, and another one would have been for the filters, but you get the gist of it. Then you can absolutely do that if you want to. I will just stick to the same file here, okay? So I'm going to leave a comment here, visibility filter action creators. We will then create our action creator here, so that's going to be const, and we will say active to-dos. It's not going to accept any arguments, and this will basically just return type would be active to-dos filter. Okay, and it's not going to have any payload. It's going to be very simple. And thinking about it, this is a bit superfluous, so I'm going to select all and remove that filter from there. So it's a bit easier when we are going to import it. Okay, so that's going to be our main function. Now let's go back to our footer and let's start writing our const map dispatch to props. Okay, that will receive dispatch, and then we will say show active to-dos, so we can then access this as props in the component. That's going to be a function, and the function itself is going to pass the action creator that we just created, and that was, let me go back and have a check. This will make more sense if we say show active to-dos, and we also need to export this out. That's why the editor couldn't bring it in, so I'll say show active to-dos. Yeah, that makes sense. I will then go ahead and pass that here. Okay. That means we now have access to show active to-dos, right, through the destructuring. And we don't need this function anymore, because what we can do is we can just directly call that function here. That also means that we don't need to pass this anymore, because we already have, if we go back, we already know that, you know, it's passing active to-dos filter, so we don't have to accept any filter in there. We can just call this show active to-dos. So now let's go to the filter reducer, right? And here, let's put our switch statement here. We will say action.type. Okay. We will say case active to-dos, and we get that imported, which is nice, and we will say return all. Okay, that's pretty much it, and we also need to provide a default, and this is going to be return state, and I apologize, this needs to return active, not all. Okay, so I can now remove this, format the code a little, come back to the browser, and let's see. Handle filter is not defined. Now that's because we deleted it. So let's go back, and just for now, so that we don't get the error, let me see if I can copy this back and put it here, and this is going to do nothing. Okay, but now we don't get any errors. But if I click on active, oh, seems like we attached the filter at the wrong place, so this needs to be here. Okay, and this needs to be handle filter, and we're going to look at it later on. But that seems now working as expected. So if I add 1, 2, and if I get all is not working, active is working, but that means that, you know, we're not getting these 2 in the list, right? So that's all good. Let's go back, quickly introduce these other filters. So another one is going to be const completed to-dos. Okay, and I'm going to quickly copy this, create a function. This will show completed to-dos, and this will return completed to-dos. Okay, let's go back. And here we can say show completed to-dos. That's again going to be a function. We will dispatch and we will say show completed to-dos. Okay, so sometimes this destructuring is not a good idea because now I have to include everything in here. So here's what I'll do. I'm just going to accept the props, and that means that now I can say props.todos, and then here I'll say props.show active to-dos, and then completed would be props dot, and let me just remove all this, and that's going to be show completed to-dos. Okay, we need to go back to our reducer and have another case statement here, and that would basically say completed to-dos, and we've got it imported on the top. This will say completed. Okay, so if we come back, refresh, completed, active, and that seems to be working. Now let's look at this all. Okay, we also want to have this selected class applied to the filter that we click on. So at the moment we are getting the focus, but we're not applying this class here. Okay, so let's go back. And the first thing I see is that we've got this in the wrong place. This should be in actions. I'm sure you guys saw that, right? So let's do this. So this needs to be here along with the other filters. Now if I come back, I can say show all, and that looks good. So if we say show all, and by default we have set the state to all, that means that I can just say case show all. So if the case or the action type is show all, or the default, we will just return the state, which means all. Okay, so let's go back, and in fact we will need to create an action creator, and this action creator is going to show all to-dos. Okay, and here it will be show all, and if I go back to the footer now, I can copy this, paste it, and then I can say show all to-dos, and this one will say show all to-dos. So it seems like we need to import that here. That means I can now here say props.show all to-dos. Okay, so if we come back, refresh, active, completed, all, and the all should be showing everything, right? Seems like it's not. Let's go back to our editor to find out what's going on. Okay, so if I go to footer, show all to-dos, yeah, that's correct. So it is doing, so it is passing the correct constant. So that means let's go to filter reducer, state. Oh, you know what? This is the problem, because yes, we are giving it a default value of all, but we just return state here. So that means that, and I think we can verify that if we go to the components. So if you don't have the DevTools, I would highly recommend to download the DevTools. And that means that we can see what value the filter gets, right? So if I click on active, and then when I click on all, it doesn't change. And the reason for that is that by this time state is active. And that's why when we say when it is show all or default, we just return the state. And this should really be all. And we could just make this an empty string, or we can keep it all. Okay, so now I think with any luck, if we click on active, yeah, we see active, completed, and we see all. Great. Okay, so we've got filters almost finished. We've got now count in place. In the next lesson, we will finish this up because we still need to go through the deleting to do, and we still need to go through clearing all of completed to-dos and also this functionality. Sorry, before we finish, I think we need to implement this class that we talked about, right? Okay, so let's go back and let's have a look. So we need to have this selected class whenever somebody clicks on it, right? How are we going to find out that which filter was selected? Well, easy, right? What we can do here is that we can have access to the filter. State.filter. So now that means that what I can do, and I think we can delete this, and we'll comment this out for now. And here, class name, we can check. We can say something like, so there are two ways. You can do it right here, or you can create a class. A function for it. Okay, but I would rather just, do it in line. So here we will say props.filter, and if that's all, then give it a class of selected, right? Otherwise, give it an empty string. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. Another way would be to have a little function here which basically takes care of this. Completely up to you. But I'll copy this, come here, class name, paste it here, and here we will say if it is active, right? Same thing here, class name, and here we will say completed. Okay, so if we come back, I click on active, we have a class there now, completed, yeah, all. Brilliant. So it's all working as expected. We will finish off here and we will then start tackling these other features in the next lesson.